I call the member for Whitsunday.
Thanks very much, Mr Acting Speaker, and I'm delighted tonight to rise to speak on the appropriation bills in relation to the 2019-20 state budget. For my first contribution in that regard as the only independent MP in regional Queensland, Mr Acting Speaker, and I just want to follow on from some of the comments made by my fellow North Queenslander there, the member for Townsville. And with the greatest respect to the member for Townsville, it was interesting to hear the feedback from his local Chamber of Commerce. And I'm sure that if I speak to my Chamber of Commerce members across Mackay and the Whitsundays, we will see similar feedback. It is very good to see reform to thresholds in relation to payroll tax to stimulate the economy and stimulate jobs. But I'm sure the member for Townsville, like all those other Labor MPs up and down the coast, particularly north of the Noosa line, if you like, got a lot of feedback, a lot of heat. It's been well documented, Mr Acting Speaker, in relation to Labor's position on the Carmichael mine and the development of the Galilee Basin. I'm sure those Chambers of Commerce and Townsville Chamber of Commerce know different. And I know for a fact, having spoken to people in my regional Chambers of Commerce, the Mackay Regional Chamber of Commerce, people like Victoria Gracie, if you listen to what she's had to say, they've been banging on about the development of the Galilee Basin, because if you want to have a strong economy and jobs and economic prosperity for Queensland, particularly regional Queensland, you've got to get the green light to the Galilee Basin. And that's why today is a pivotal moment in the history of this great state. 160 years, and I hear the interjection from the member for Townsville, we did it. Well, it was like waiting for snow to come back to Yungala. Well, I'm not sure if it was worth it, but I tell you what, speak to some of your federal Labor colleagues. I hear the interjection again from the member for Townsville. He spoke about Elton John, Sir Elton John opening the new North Queensland Stadium. I can't wait to see the Cowboys take on residents at their new home. But I tell you what, Rocket Man may well be coming to Townsville, but Mr Acting Speaker, never forget the fact that the people of Queensland put a rocket up Labor on May 18. That's why we've seen this rapid-fire response. We've seen the acrobatics from state Labor because they are panicking. They are panicking. Regional Queensland's hurting, and they're going to hurt more on the back of this state Labor budget. I want to talk about the situation in relation to the regional action plan that's been put forward, the glossy brochure, and all governments do it, of course, Mr Deputy Speaker. But I look at last year's regional action plan for Mackay and the Whitsundays, and it is so eerily similar to the current edition. There's so much cut and paste in this, it's not funny. And I tell you what is amazing is that 2 days ago on the digital platform of the News Corp papers and the Whitsundays, there was the headline, funding snub. No money for a project that I've been banging on about for probably 5 years, or best part of, Mr Deputy Speaker, and that of course is flood mitigation works on Shute Harbour Road at Hamilton Plains just outside Proserpine. Unbelievably, late yesterday morning, I'm pleased to advise honourable members in the House, those watching through live streaming tonight, and certainly my constituents in particular, that I got a call yesterday morning and that funding apparently is there from the Minister. And I'm grateful it's come. He's buckled to pressure, political pressure from myself, community pressure. Apparently, Mr Deputy Speaker, he announced this funding on June 4 in Mackay. And I'm not sure what the spin doctor was doing that day. Maybe he was on work experience, Mr Deputy Speaker, but I'm led to believe the press releases were handed out hard copy to the local journalists. Nothing was sent electronically, and we had not heard anything about it until I got the call yesterday morning regarding this project. Funding for Hamilton Plains. I cannot see it in the glossy brochure, the regional action plan. I don't see it there, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's not there. I look at the capital statements, budget paper number 3. I can't see it there either. But I'm led to believe that tomorrow's Whitsunday Coast Guardian, their lead story will be, in fact, about my successful campaign, a long-running campaign. V for victory, Mr Deputy Speaker. We got the job done. And amazingly, we had to rely on Canberra to partly fund a state-controlled road. You know, I think we understand that happens with the Bruce Highway, with the long-standing arrangements in funding the Bruce Highway on an 80-20 basis. That's been going on for a long time. This begs the question, why do we even have state governments? It's a state-controlled road. Look, I'm pleased to see that money come through. It is a great victory, and it hasn't been for the want of trying on my part. There's no doubt about that. Mr Deputy Speaker, it's been raised by a number of members in the Appropriation Bill debate, the lack of a food and fibre tariff in relation to electricity. And I know that a lot of cane farmers in my electorate, from Farley to Foxdale and from Coningsby to Coolachoo, are lamenting the absence of a food and fibre tariff. Ergon, with a monopoly on the situation, are continuing to suck cane farmers, and whilst we welcome any price reductions in electricity, it doesn't go anywhere near far enough, and there's certainly no provisions, from what I can understand in this budget, to provide relief for irrigators. And cane growers in Mackay, cane growers in Proserpine deserve a fair go. We need to be investing in agriculture. It's my vision, Mr Deputy Speaker, to see us building dams. And without dams or water and electricity, and affordable electricity, reliable electricity, where are we going as a state? That's why I keep banging on about cheaper power through state-of-the-art technology and high-efficiency, low-emissions coal-fired power. And the best place to do it is at Collinsville. And it's quite remarkable because 12 months ago tomorrow we heard the Leader of the Opposition get up here in the chamber, Mr Deputy Speaker, and ramble on about renewable energy and like there was no tomorrow. And I know there was a lot of backlash to that because I was a member of the LNP at that point in time. And it's amazing that 12 months down the track, I've got to say, Mr Deputy Speaker, I didn't even bother listening to the Leader of the Opposition and her contribution to these matters 12 months down the track, because there's not too many people in this chamber that have an ironclad commitment to coal. Coal is king, there's oodles of it, and we shouldn't be frightened to burn it. We can burn it cleaner and smarter and provide affordable electricity, not only to cane growers, but for small business, heavy industry, mums and dads. We need that. We used to have it. We need to get it back. Mr Deputy Speaker, I've got to say that in relation to a number of matters that I've seen through the budget papers, look, I want to say something about black lung, the scourge of black lung. I went to an information session conducted by WorkCover a couple of weeks ago in Mackay. The member for Mackay was there, the member for Moranni, and there were questions being asked. It is disappointing, again, in this budget we see nothing to fund the establishment of the Mine Safety and Health Authority in Mackay. It was one of the key recommendations, a cornerstone recommendation of the Coal Workers Pneumoconiosis Select Committee that I proudly served on. There was tremendous bipartisanship in relation to those matters and those deliberations. I see the member for Bundamba nodding, Mr Deputy Speaker. She chaired that committee. The former member for Southern Downs was the deputy chair. There was tremendous goodwill. There was tremendous bipartisanship. It was noted, Mr Deputy Speaker, by mine workers, coal workers, their families, current coal miners, former coal miners, retired coal miners, noted by the union, noted by the mining companies. Every Tom, Dick and Harry noted it, Mr Deputy Speaker. And the work that was done, and it was a team effort, was good work. And that's what I keep often saying when I get up and speak, Mr Deputy Speaker. We come into this place, no matter whether we sit on that side of the aisle or this side of the aisle, to make the system better. And again, the system fails coal workers across Queensland. There's nothing in that budget to set up this new authority in the city of Mackay, as per the recommendations of the Coal Workers Pneumoconiosis Select Committee. Can I just come back to today's edition of the Whitsunday Times? I cannot believe it. The headline goes, page 10, Labor commits to the Whitsundays and state budget. I want to come back to the Regional Action Plan. Mr Deputy Speaker, there's so many projects there. There's the skate park in Blacks Beach in the southern part of my electorate, which has really been a tremendous project over a long period of time. No doubt about that, and I've got to pay tribute to young Flynn Bushell. He's a young constituent of mine in the Northern Beaches, and his dear friend Ethan Laval across the other side of Slade Bay in the neighbouring electorate of Mackay. These are two young kids that have really set a fine example to young people in Mackay and the Whitsundays in championing that sports park. Mr Deputy Speaker, it was in the Regional Action Plan last year. Same story with the Whitsunday Sports Park at Jubilee Pocket, and on it goes. So many other projects in there. In fact, I went through it, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I think there was 24 bricks and mortar projects in the Mackay Whitsunday region, which I count as the three local government areas of Mackay, Whitsunday and Isaac, and I think it was about a third of those would be in the Whitsunday electorate. They were so hard up, Mr Deputy Speaker, for projects. They were so hard up looking for dots on the map looking for dots on the map, they actually found a dot on the border at the Burdekin Falls Dam. On the Burdekin Falls Dam, they thought, we'll put a dot there. Don't worry about Hamilton Plains. Hamilton Plains apparently was so important they forgot all about it. So I look at this regional action plan, and I call it a regional inaction plan. I think there's 2 letters missing, plus a bit more. Coming back to that photograph or that story in today's Whitsunday Times, and I quote again, Labor commits to the Whitsundays and state budget. I laughed and laughed my head off when I picked up the Whitsunday Times in Proserpine this morning after going to Hamilton Plains to celebrate the great victory for our community, on behalf of our community. And I see the photograph there, the file picture. They must have been hung up for, it was not a photo of me, but at the end of the day, if they don't want to sell papers, that's their business. But it says, I take the interjection from the member, the soon-to-be outgoing member for Toohey, and it says, and it refers, Deputy Speaker, the photograph in the story relates to the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and the Proserpine Entertainment Centre. Well, I've got to say, Mr Deputy Speaker, this is the third Labor budget. This is the third Labor budget since Cyclone Debbie. And we're still hurting in the Whitsundays. There's no money in this budget to, for example, rebuild the old pavilion at the Proserpine Showgrounds. We've got the Proserpine Show on next Friday and Saturday, and the current Treasurer and Deputy Premier of Queensland, a member for South Brisbane, look, I love a photo opportunity like all honourable members in here. She's no different, it would appear. No different whatsoever. She rolled into the showgrounds, Mr Deputy Speaker, posed for the cameras, and we're still waiting to see. I was there the other day catching up with my mate Chicken Man from Bloomsbury, Wayne Quantock. Well, he had a few roosters in the chook house and they weren't crowing about Labor. Let me give you the tip, Mr Deputy Speaker. They weren't crowing at all. That was before the budget. It was before the budget. Because the old pavilion, across from the poultry pavilion, it's a scar of the cyclone, yet we had the Treasurer come through Proserpine and Whitsundays, the now Treasurer, after the cyclone, and still nothing's been done. And I look at this photograph, this file picture of the Mayor of Bowen, as I call him, all right, and, well, he's the official Mayor. The de facto Mayor, of course, is the far Labor candidate for Dawson and Burdekin, Mike Brunker. And so we've got Moscow's lapdog here, I would have thought. With the current Deputy Mayor, it took them 2 years to work out that the entertainment centre was stuffed. Can you imagine, after Cyclone Tracy in 1974, that the Lord Mayor of Darwin would sit back and think, after 2 years, yeah, I don't think the theatre's any good. Can you imagine the Lord Mayor of Newcastle saying the same thing after the devastating and tragic earthquake of 1989? 2 years to work out that the entertainment centre was stuffed. And apparently we've got money now, and it's in the budget, and that's a great thing. I'm not convinced the old girl's stuffed, but apparently we're getting a new one. We're getting a new one, Deputy Speaker, and it will have reduced seating capacity. So there's been a lot of coin being thrown by members opposite, and specifically the Treasurer, to help our community. But it took 2 years to get the money to do it, and apparently the new entertainment centre will have reduced seating capacity. And the fear is people, performers, artists will just bypass the Whitsundays as they roll into town. Now, that's been something that's been lamented already. Irene Lemon, who's a constituent of mine in Strathdickey, she's contacted me about it. Key stakeholders have been canvassed by the council. This government, this Labor government, is going to be giving money to a project that I'm not sure is going to stack up in the end. Can I just finish up, Mr Deputy Speaker, by talking about the debt? The debt bomb that keeps ticking away like the clock in front of me, Deputy Speaker. A debt bomb pushing towards $90 billion. $90 billion. And the interest bill per annum, what, $3.5 billion? Put it in perspective, Mr Deputy Speaker, for the benefit of my constituents, that is something like seven Mackay ring roads or 6 new crossings of flood-prone Gorganga plains. $3.5 billion in interest payments alone. Talk about burning cash like there is no tomorrow. Queensland, Mr Deputy Speaker, in summing up, doesn't have a problem with bringing money in. We've got a problem with spending money, and that problem starts with the member for South Brisbane, and she should hang her head in shame. Hang her head in shame, because whilst there's some good things in this budget, for the bulk of it, it's a lemon.
Mr Deputy Speaker. Call the member.